Can Northwestern cover the spread on the road in Iowa City at Kinnick against Iowa this weekend? Can we stay hot with our picks? Let's talk.
You are Locked On Northwestern, your daily podcast on the Northwestern Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. This is Locked On Northwestern, our Friday edition, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making Locked On Northwestern your first listen for anything and everything Northwestern. We're available wherever you get podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen. You can find us. We're also on YouTube. Just search Locked On Northwestern. You can find us there. Wherever you are listening, make sure you subscribe, turn on notifications, give us some feedback, leave a comment, leave a review. We'd love to get your feedback. We'd love to make the show better. Today's episode of Locked On Northwestern is brought to you by Underdog. Sign up on UnderdogFantasy.com with promo code Locked On and get your first deposit doubled up to $100. All right. So here we are, Friday edition, talking about some of these games upcoming this weekend. We're going to start with Northwestern, as we always do. Northwestern is at Iowa. I think that this game is fascinating. I think it's 2:30 kick, if I recall correctly. Iowa has one of the worst offenses in the country. Yeah, the fewest yards in the country by like over 100 yards, and I think it's around 200 something yards fewer than the second worst team. Spencer Petras, really rough quarterback, not great. Not one of the worst quarterbacks in the country. As you saw on yesterday's episode, we talked with Trent Condon of Locked On Hawkeyes. They don't know who's going to take the first snap of the game. They don't know who's going to make the start at quarterback. This offense is averaging 227.3 yards per game, scoring 14 points per game, which is 128th in the country. 145.9 passing yards per game, which is 122nd in the country. 81.4 rushing yards per game, 127th. They have a 66.7% red zone offensive score percentage, tied for 126th. They only have 7 offensive touchdowns this season, which is incredible. They are 121st in completion percentage at 52.7% with their quarterbacks. Look, the offense is no other word to describe it other than putrid. It's really bad. And I think you're going to see some changes at the end of the year for Iowa. But when you go to the other side of the ball, the defense is awesome. The defense only allows 278.3 yards per game, which is good for 6th in America. 16.14 points per game, 8th in the country. 104.3 rushing yards per game. That's top 15. That's 14th in the country. 174 passing yards, 11th. They're a really strong unit. They allow third down conversions on 31.5% of third downs, which is the top 25 mark in the country, 23rd to be exact. They have 3 defensive touchdowns. So they have almost half the amount of touchdowns that the offense has this year. They have forced 14 turnovers. The offense has also has turned the ball over 14 times as well. But the defense has 7 interceptions and 7 fumbles recovered. And look, I mean, this defense is truly special. They are really good at limiting opposing offenses. Really, when you look at the big picture numbers against Ohio State, the defense didn't play that bad. They kind of limited that Ohio State offense. It just seems that Iowa turned the ball over at inopportune times, and Ohio State took advantage, and they converted their their turnovers into points. So look, this Iowa team is really good on one side of the ball and awful on the other side of the ball. Well, let's talk about Northwestern then. Going up against this Iowa defense, Northwestern has to run the football. Evan Hull has to get going. He has 125 carries on the year, 547 yards, 3 rushing touchdowns, 40 receptions, 436 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns in the air. Last week, after some tough sledding for a few weeks in a row, he kind of got going. 20 rushes, 119 yards, 4 receptions, 31 yards, and a touchdown. Really impressive showing for him last week on the road in College Park. Unfortunately, Northwestern was not able to pull it out, and that's partially because, well, it's in large part because of the turnovers on offense, both of which are Brendan Sullivan interceptions. Brendan Sullivan and company on offense have to do a better job protecting the football. Northwestern is one of the bottom teams in the country in turnover margin. They do not force a lot of turnovers and then turn the ball over too much to go with that. If they can win the turnover battle, this can be a very, very, very close game. I think Northwestern can stay in it. As you heard Trent Condon yesterday say, he actually has Northwestern winning this game. That should give you an idea of how the confidence level of Iowa and Iowa fans going into this game. Look, the line is Iowa minus 11. The over-under is 37.5. I'm going to make my pick. And I'm going to say Northwestern covers 11, and I'm going to take the under 37. I don't think there's going to be a lot of points in this game. Frankly, this is the best defense Northwestern's offense is going to see all year long. I don't see them putting up a lot of points. Iowa, their offense is so bad, I don't see them putting up a lot of points. If Northwestern does not turn the ball over, I don't know where the points are going to come from. Northwestern's defense has not been particularly great, but they're plenty good enough to get stops against Iowa's offense. Look, Iowa's offense, Iowa this year, their points per game and their points per game allowed is well below 37.5. And Northwestern's probably not in the not one of the better offenses that this Iowa team has seen. They just saw Ohio State last year and limited them despite the point total. I know I'm going to keep harping on that, but it's fascinating that how good this Iowa defense is, and I think Northwestern is going to have difficulty putting up points. On the other side of it, Iowa's offense is so bad under Brian Ferentz, son of head coach Kirk Ferentz, that I don't see them scoring points either. It's going to be an ugly football game. It's going to be, as I said yesterday, it's going to be an ugly game, but it might be one of those ones that you just feel like you can't take your eyes off. It's like watching a train wreck happen just because it's going to be so much bad offense in this game. It's going to be painful, but that's the fun stuff. When you get these games like that, it does become anybody can win it. It becomes a muck it up kind of game. And I think Northwestern has played those kind of games here recently. I think they keep it close. I think the under hits in this game. In just a second, we're gonna take a look around the Big Ten and make some picks around the Big Ten. But first, let me tell you about our friends at Underdog. This episode is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy, the easiest place to spice up college football season. It's easy to get started and it's easy to play while you're watching your favorite team. Look, it's available in over 30 states. It's so easy to get involved. Just pick between 2 and 5 players across any team, not just Northwestern, and decide if they will finish higher or lower than the total listed. It's one of the easiest fantasy games to play out there, and you can win cold, hard cash in a single game. Go to Underdog to make your own pick. Sign up with promo code LOCKEDON, and Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. So deposit $100, get $100 free. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com or find the Underdog Fantasy app in the App Store or Google Play Store. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code Locked On. Get in on the college football pick'em action today. All right, and then before we get started on this next segment, looking around the Big Ten, look, thank you for making Locked On Northwestern your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On Sports Today. From games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can really provide to you. Locked On Sports Today, available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. All right. Now that we have talked about Northwestern and Iowa, let's talk about the games around the Big Ten. You do have the big matchup, and that's where we're going to start. Number 2, Ohio State at number 13, Penn State. The line is Ohio State minus 15.5, over under of 61. Look, my pick in this game, it comes down to the fact that Ohio State has too many weapons. Last week, going against what I think is the best defense Ohio State is going to see all year long, Ohio State put up 54 points, and it wasn't a pretty 54 by any stretch. They turned the ball over some, but then they took advantage of the fact that they turned the other team over so much in Iowa. So, look, Ohio State's got too many weapons. Penn State got smacked a couple weeks ago by Michigan. I think Ohio State's better than them. I've not been sold on this Penn State team at any point this year. Maybe after they hammered Auburn, but then Auburn turned out to be a joke. So give me Ohio State minus 15.5 and give me the over 61. We saw last week, Ohio State can cover a number like that by themselves. Well, they just need a little help. They just need a little help from Penn State this weekend, and I think that they can push this thing over 61, and I think that that's going to be my pick for that one. Next up, Rutgers at Minnesota. The line is Minnesota minus 14. The over-under is 40.5. Look, this game's going to be ugly. I know Minnesota's banged up. What's the situation? How healthy is this team? Ibrahim is the best player in this game. I think he goes wild, and I think that's going to be a key story as this game develops. Rutgers is really bad. Minnesota, at least I feel like, has some talent on the roster. Give me Minnesota minus 14 and under 40.5 in that one. Next up, we have number 17 Illinois, the shock of the Big Ten this year, at Nebraska. Interim coach-led Nebraska, as we've covered in this game before, partly thanks to the fact that Northwestern beat them in week 0. The line is Illinois minus 7.5, over-under of 50. Look, Illinois they're pretty daggum good. Brett Bielema has built something at Illinois, and it's been impressive. And, man, they can run the football. Chase Brown is awesome. Right there with Blake Corum for best running back in the Big Ten. Nebraska is just too inconsistent. We've seen some performances where they've put up an incredible number of points, not one incredible like in the 40s. We've seen some games where they've kind of struggled to get anything going, like that game against Rutgers. Look, give me Illinois minus 7.5 in this one and the over 50. I think Nebraska gets enough going early, but I think Illinois has to score some points to win this, and I think that they cover that 7.5. I think we hit the over 50 in this one. Next up, finally, actually, the last game on the Big Ten slate, because so many teams are not playing, Michigan State at number 4, Michigan. The line is Michigan minus 23, over under of 55. Look, this Michigan is awesome. Blake Corum is a legitimate Heisman candidate. They just smacked Penn State a couple weeks ago. This feels like a spot where Harbaugh gets some revenge for games in the past and kind of runs it up. And hangs 50 points on Michigan State and makes a statement with it in a rivalry game. For that reason, give me Michigan minus 23, and I will take the over 55 in this one. I just don't think Michigan State's very good, but it is a rivalry game. You do have to throw the records out sometimes. But look, I think Harbaugh's going to make a point and put up points in this one as a result. The teams in the Big Ten off on a bye week. Maryland, who just beat Northwestern, Indiana, Purdue, and Wisconsin. Last week, making these picks, we went 4-6. If you count the Northwestern picks from the original, the first segment as well. Let's see if this week we can kind of get some momentum and push it over 500 this week. In just a second, we are going to take a look around the country and see what games stick out to us there. But, thank you again for taking the time this Friday and making Locked On Northwestern your first listen. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast, the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day, available on your Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. All right, so now that we've talked around the country, or we've talked around the Big Ten, rather, let's talk around the country, which, by the way, this is where we made up incredible ground last week, 13-3, red hot around the country. And we're going to start with Notre Dame, the Fighting Irish, on the road at the Orange. Number 16, Syracuse. Look, the line is Syracuse minus 2.5, over under 47. Look, Notre Dame has a really, really bad offense, a really good defense. Syracuse is extremely competent. They should have won that game against Clemson yesterday, or not yesterday, Saturday. Apologies. They've got Garrett Schrader and Sean Tucker. Both are dynamic guys in the run game. Sean Tucker's one of the better running backs in the country. Also, check out his tweets after the game, because he gives a report on his game on Twitter, and it's a fascinating tweet every week where he talks about the game that was played and his performance in it. I don't think Notre Dame is very good. I think this year is kind of a wash, like kind of flush it down the toilet. It's over for Marcus Freeman. I think it's a great opportunity for Syracuse in this one. Can they get off the mat after losing a kind of a heartbreaker to Clemson? Again, they felt like they had all the control in the world and allow Clemson to kind of run wild and come back and beat them in that one. Give me Syracuse minus 2.5. Give me the under 47.5 in this one as well. Next up, we got a ranked matchup out in the Big 12. Number 9, Oklahoma State, the Pokes, at number 22, Kansas State, and the Wildcats. The line is K-State minus 1, over under 56 in this one. My thoughts on this is, look, is Adrian Martinez even playing in this game? At the time of recording, don't have an update on that, I don't think. We don't know. Have not seen whether he's playing or not. If he plays, I think that can potentially drastically change this game, but he also may not be 100%. Can Oklahoma State respond after dropping one to TCU this past week? Look, I think it's, can they respond and continue to, I guess, build on this resume to go potentially play in the Big 12 championship? Manhattan's a tough place to play. Manhattan, Kansas, not the Manhattan that we're all used to talking about. But I think Oklahoma State they're just sneaky awesome. They're a top 10 team year in, year out right now. And I think I've got to take the Pokes here. I've got to take Oklahoma State plus 1. I'll even take a money line and give me over 56 in this one. I think you are going to see some points. I know that Oklahoma State has a defense that at times can be solid. But I think that both these teams might put up some numbers in this one. Next up, number 20 Cincinnati at UCF. The line is UCF -2. The over/under is 56. UCF is an incredibly inconsistent team. UCF can score sometimes. And then last week, they got hammered by somebody. I forget in the American. Somebody they had no business losing to. But that's the Gus Malzahn experience, everybody. That's what happens when he's your head coach. Random games he'll show up, pull some tricks from his sleeves. But, other times you just don't have any momentum. You don't have any ability to adjust, and things kind of fizzle out. Look, I think Cincy is just the better team here. Give me Cincy +2 and over 56 in this one. Next up, ranked matchup in the SEC. Interesting game here. Number 19, Kentucky at number 3, Tennessee. Tennessee is a 12.5-point favorite in this one. The over-under is 62.5. Look, Tennessee's too explosive. Hendon Hooker is a legitimate Heisman finalist. I think you're going to see him in New York. Can he wrestle it away from C.J. Stroud? I don't know. But look, I don't think Kentucky can keep up, even though it is a look-ahead spot for Tennessee. They have Georgia next week. So if Kentucky keeps it interesting, that could be why. It could be that this Tennessee team maybe has its eyes on the horizon to their second enormous matchup of the year and might overlook this Tennessee team or this Kentucky team. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think this Tennessee team is too good, too focused. Give me Tennessee -12.5 and under 62.5 in this one. I do think we go under. I think that the Tennessee defense is probably a little better than it gets credit for sometimes. Next up, number 15, Ole Miss at Texas A&M. Ole Miss is a 1.5-point favorite on the road in A&M. Over under 55.5. Like, Ole Miss is so overrated, and Texas A&M is so awful. They just suspended 3 players this week, 2 freshmen on the offensive line for doing some stuff before the game. Let's say if they take a drug test this week, they will not pass it. Look, I still think that this Ole Miss team on the road is going to struggle. I think A&M, for some reason, my gut still says, despite how bad they are, A&M figures out a way to get it done. A&M +1.5 and money line, and give me under 55.5 in that game right there. And finally, Pitt at number 21, North Carolina. UNC is only a 3-point favorite in this game, and that's why I highlighted it. Over under of 65. Look, UNC's got an awesome offense and an awful defense. It's been the story all year long. Pitt's been pretty up and down and inconsistent. They've had some injuries at quarterback this year. UNC's also been awful when ranked for that reason. And they don't handle it well. And then Mac Brown gets in front of the media and tells them about the expectations the media is putting on his team and all that, and they got it wrong and yada, yada, yada. Give me Pitt +3 and the under 65. And that's going to do it for the picks around the country. Kind of a sleepy week around the country. Not a ton of great games, but we made do. We made some picks about the games that we're going to keep an eye on. It'll be another fun weekend of college football. Maybe crazy stuff breaks out. Of course, all of those lines that we just discussed are brought to you by Bet Online. That's probably going to do it for today's episode. We'll see what happens in Northwestern-Iowa and the games around the Big Ten or games around the country. And then we will be back next week for Locked On Northwestern. I'm your host, Carter Bird. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at CarterBird13. Really appreciate that. And thank you for making Locked On Northwestern your first listen every day. We're available wherever you get podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever. We're also on YouTube. Make sure you turn on notifications and subscribe wherever you listen. Leave a comment. Give us some feedback. We're always trying to make the show better. And yeah, we appreciate you listening here at Locked On Northwestern. And we will see you next time.